Rapunzel, happily ever after. Well, the exact antithesis of that. In Romford's busy heart, where the sun tried to shine, Rapunzel was ecstatic, her morning divine. To elate her dear Jack was her ultimate goal. With a wedding so grand, it would stir every soul. She donned her white silk, a superior sight, a distinguished young bride in the shimmering light. Her hair was a river of gold, soft and long, as she hummed to herself a sweet bridal song. Jack felt exhilarated, handsome and tall, the most competent groom at the edge of the hall. He checked his itinerary, precise and quite clear, to avoid any error or lingering fear. But his joy was on borrowed time, truth be it told, for a juvenile storm was about to unfold. He adjusted his cufflinks with a confident air, unaware of the chaos that soon would be there. The church in modern Romford was a concrete delight, with stained glass that captured the morning's pale light. Amidst the high street's bustle and the bus stop's hum, the guests had gathered for the day to become. Alex, the mother, from Cornwall's green shore, guided her daughter through the heavy oak door. "Proper job, maid," she whispered with pride, as she walked to the front at her daughter's side. For Samantha, Sam Boyd was the guest from your dreams. If your dreams are abysmal and bursting at seams, the antithesis of a sweet flower girl, she was prone to a tantrum, a twist, and a swirl. Notorious for chaos, a petulant soul, to sabotage weddings was her primary role. She scowled at the pews with a look of disdain, ready to cause some professional pain. As Rapunzel proceeded to walk down the aisle, Sam intentionally stepped with a predatory smile. With a stomp of her heel, sharp as a spear, she pinned the white fabric, confirming each fear. A rip and a tear, the silk gave a groan, a sound like a mountaintop's falling stone. Rapunzel's grand entrance was suddenly barred, as her beautiful gown was irrevocably marred. The bride was distraught, her heart reduced to lead, as she looked at the jagged white ruins and thread. The emotional impact was sharp as a knife, a horrendous beginning to married up life. "Are you for real?" she whispered in ire, as the situation grew dire and more dire. But she had to maintain a calm, stoic face, despite the appalling and public disgrace. Dunstan the vicar was loquacious and grand, the most talkative man in the whole of the land. His voice was a bell, ringing loud through the air, while Jack waited patiently, offering a prayer. The ceremony reached the penultimate part, where rings signify the deep love of the heart. The gold was so precious, a symbol of trust, before Sam intervened with a sense of disgust. Sam grabbed for a ring with an energetic hand, then dropped it where drainage was currently planned. She flicked it away with a smug little sneer, toward the metal vent that was sitting quite near. Clink, clink, went the gold down the heating vent grate, as Sam feigned a look of a crestfallen state. "It eluded my fingers," she shouted in glee, while Rapunzel felt livid as livid could be. Jack knelt on the floor, his frustration immense, while Sam's lack of worry made no bloody sense. He poked and he prodded with a desperate finger, while the smell of the dust seemed to heavily linger. "It's gone," he lamented, "obscured by the rust." It was a big mistake, surely, to grant her his trust. The tense moment stretched like a wire about to snap, as the ring lay deep in the heating vent's trap. The service continued, albeit quite flawed, with a borrowed brass ring that the vicar had drawn. They said their I-do's, as the tension did escalate, caught in a loop of a miserable fate. Initially ecstatic, now reluctant and cold, the irony of the happily ever after took hold. The brass was too big, and it sat on her hand, the clumsiest jewel in the whole of the land. Outside the Romford church, the sky turned to gray, a pathetic fallacy for this dreadful day. Barnaby the photographer requested a smile, but the weather was bleak for at least half a mile. "Look happy, please," he cried with a frown, as the drizzle began to fall over the town. Rapunzel's ruined dress was a wet, heavy weight as she stood by the archway and cursed her sad fate. Every picture was ruined, a cacophonous mess. Sam's antics were excessive, we have to confess. She blocked out the light, she jumped in the frame, treating the wedding like a juvenile game. "Get out of the shot," Jack shouted in vain, as Sam made a face that was truly profane. She mimicked the bride with a mocking grimace, adding fuel to the fire and further disgrace. To the reception they went, to the hall made of stone, where a pink and white cake sat grand and alone. 5 tiers of sponge, like a mountain of sweet, with frosting that smelled like a sugary treat. With toppers of sugar, a bride and a groom, it stood as a beacon in the spacious room. But Sam viewed the cake as a target to hit, a delicious dilemma for her benefit. Before the grand cutting, before the first slice, Sam ate the icing. It wasn't very nice. She gobbled the toppers, she licked every side, ignoring the rules and the joy of the bride. She scooped up the cream with a hand that was greedy, acting quite selfish and terribly needy. "It's out of the question," the bridesmaids did shout, but Sam only smirked with a sugar-smeared pout. Jack saw the disaster and let out a roar. He chased after Sam across the waxed floor. "Stop that at once, you intolerable pest!" He was incensed and eager to end her foul quest. His pursuit was relentless, his ire was high, as he vowed that Sam's antics would finally die. Sam giggled and sprinted, a blur of bright pink, leaving Jack with no time to even just think. But Jack lost his footing. He tripped on a chair and flew through the heavy, cake-scented air. Like a bird made of navy, he took to the sky before the great crash that would make the bride cry. Crash went the table. The cake hit the ground, a sickening, squelching and thudding-like sound. The masterpiece crumbled, a heap on the floor, staining the groom from his head to his core. Alex confronted her daughter, Sam Boyd, with a clownish rebuke that couldn't be avoided. "Tessa disgraced me, boo. You little Tess here," she cried, as her face turned a deep shade of blue. Her shame was a cloud, heavy and dark, extinguishing every last celebratory spark. "Get down on me, little Tess. That's the last straw, I say. You've marred this poor couple's entire big day." To top it all off, as the party grew dim, Sam knocked over candles on a petulant whim. She swiped at the table with a flick of her wrist, giving the evening a fiery twist. The tablecloth flickered, the flames began to grow, an irrevocable omen of a fiery show. "Fire!" screamed the guests as the smoke filled the air, turning the dream to a nightmare of despair. A cacophony of sirens, a rush for the door. The wedding was finished, a joyless chore. The guests had to vacate, they fled to the street, escaping the stench and the blistering heat. Panic erupted like corn in a pan, as everyone followed the safety-first plan. The light at the end of the tunnel was gone, as the dismal reality started to dawn. Rapunzel sat weeping on a Romford stone wall. Her dress was a wreck, and she'd lost it all. The silk was all blackened with soot and with grime. The worst wedding day in the history of time. Jack stood beside her, frustrated and grim. The weight of the day was too heavy for him. Their happily ever after was far from the truth, thwarted entirely by one horrid youth.